Hello, welcome back to Tantra Mama. Today is all about 3 ways of how to communicate in a very conscious way with your children. So I want to start off with a quote that goes something like this: "The way we talk to our children becomes their inner voice." When I first read that, it was at the kindy of one of my children, and I almost cried. It touched me so deeply because I realized how important it is for me as a mom to consciously make a choice of how I talk to them. So here are the 3 ways that I want to share with you today. The first one is sort of in the situations where things are a bit more heated, where you might be a bit off balance, where you can easily say things that you then afterwards regret. And it's also known as non-violent communication. So it's basically a way of really putting the blame and the shame onto somebody else. Like it goes something like this: like, "Oh, you are a liar," and or like, "You are so annoying," rather than saying like, "I feel like you just lied to me," or "I feel like really annoyed when you do X, Y, Z." And by comparing those 2 sentences, you can probably feel like the different charge in it. So the first one is a lot more aggressive, is a lot more like in your face, and the person is like most likely going to shut down when they hear you say that about them. And the other way is sort of like it's your feelings, it's like you come from your own heart space, and you're sharing it with them. Obviously your tone and your voice are going to make a whole lot of difference as well. And we don't always have to be zen when we communicate those things, but just to kind of to make that really distinction between how you word those sentences. So as long as you start with "I feel," you should be on the right path. The next one is in situations where it's actually like a positive, like a praising situation, and again that can also be done in a much more conscious way. So what tends to happen is kids come home, let's say from school, and they've got a good grade in their exam. Let's say they got an A or a B or whatever that they come home with, and you will say probably something like, "Oh my God, I am so proud of you," right? That is like what I've kind of when I was in my primary years, or at school, that things like that is something my parents would say. Now my argument here is that you are kind of connecting the child's motivation with your pride. So you're almost taking the motivation out of them. So rather than saying like, "Oh, I am so proud of you," you could say things like, "How did you feel when you received that A? Like, how did that make you feel? I bet you felt proud." You could say that, or you can wait for their answer, which is even better way, depending on the age. But to cultivate this way of when you use praise, just be very conscious around when and how you praise and how you word that, because if you set them up in a way for them to connect, "Oh, my praise comes from my mother, so my motivation comes from my mother," then they're going to be set up for failure, because you are at one stage that they're going to they're going to do something, and they know you're not going to be proud of it. So as long as they know, as long as their motivation is clean and clear, and if they've done their best, then at least that stays within them. So yeah, we've got 1 more minute. I just checked. I don't want to be over time. So, and the last one is to have family meetings. Now that is like a huge, let's say, no, it's not huge in the sense of it's difficult. It's just sort of I'm going to touch on it in here, and then when we go and do one of our master classes, or our tribal gatherings, whatever you want to call it, we can go into that a lot deeper. So, but basically you get together in a situation when things are not super heated, because that's not going to help. You need to be able to communicate without shouting at each other's face. So ideally you had a break or listened to some music or went to the beach, and then you come together as a family, like we call it like a family meeting in my family, and you have a talking stick. So, and one person gets to start to share how they're feeling. You can put a time limit on it, or you can sort of just let them, speak. So, let's say someone says, when you were throwing the pillow at me, it made me feel really angry, and I got so upset that I really got cross with you, and I know I hit you back, and I wasn't supposed to, and I'm sorry about that. So let's say that, like in a nutshell, that's what that person or that your child said. Then you can get them, like the other, either yourself or the other child, whatever the situation was. You can get the other person, then go, all right, what did you hear them say? And let them use their own words. So the other person would say, oh, I know you got really upset with me because I threw the pillow at you, and then you got so annoyed that because you were angry with me that you kind of hit me back. And then they can ask, is that everything you said? Are you complete? And then the other person can go like, oh, you didn't mention the bit where I said that I was sorry. And then kind of the other person can go like, oh, okay, I heard you say that you were sorry. And sort of, let each other really have room and space to talk. So I have found that so valuable in my own, with my own two children, that everyone had a space to just talk and the other person had to listen. So the one with the talking stick is obviously the one talking, and everybody else is just purely listening. So that is a skill. Whoa, that's pretty hard to kind of master it on your own. And so be gentle, be set the clear intentions around it, but let you, it took my children a while, and they still sometimes, if there's still a little bit too much heat in it, they will still forget about the talking stick. So this is definitely something I would love to do in much more depth at a later time, but basically these are the 3 ways that I can easily pass on, knowing that they're super valuable and they've helped me in a long way of how to communicate, not just with my children. So thank you very much, and I'm sending you lots of love.